Hey folks, welcome to another Broken Meeple Top 10. If you're watching this during the Dice Tower Marathon, then, good on you. I hope you're enjoying yourselves. You might be watching this on YouTube, but however, the last Top 10 I did for this marathon was one that I'd already aired on my channel. It was kind of like a repeat showing. This one, though, I decided to flip it on its head and make this a premiere for the marathon itself. So this video will be airing on the YouTube channel, in the near future. Maybe give a week. Probably a week or so after this, 2 weeks max, because I need to get my top 10 of 2019 in this year. But I thought it'd just be a treat for anybody who was paying attention to the Dice Tower Marathon and enjoying it as much as I am. They could at least enjoy this video as kind of like a first showing, that kind of thing. So what this is my top 10 of 2018 retrospective. I did this list for multiple years at the start of this year, I believe, where I look back at old top 10s I've done and then think, well, I've played different games since then, my tastes may have changed, games may not have lasted as long as they could have, or maybe I just never got round to playing all the games, because it's going to be the same with this year as well. There's just so many games out there, you don't get to play all of the games until maybe a year later than they get released. It's just something that happens. So it's good to revisit these lists, and people get a kick out of seeing, okay, so at the time this was the hotness, but is it still the hotness a bit later? That remains to be seen. But for that, so little black book on the way, let's get going. Ooh, spoiler. Top 10 of 2018 retrospective. So with this list, I'm also going to tell you which ones I had ranked earlier. So I've got this page saved, but I've also got the page saved of the previous one. And my number 10 was last time quite high. It was in fact my number 3 last time. Now it's dropped to number 10. It doesn't hit the table very much because of the sheer scope of the game. It's a couple of huge boxes. It's a big miniatures game. I really like it. But the fact that it's hard for me to say, you know what, I'm going to bring this to a game night means it's not hitting the table as much as I would like. Even at conventions, it's like, oh, I've got to play these and play these and play these. But it's kind of, it's starting to drop a little bit with age. And I suppose this is the case with a lot of When You're Not games. And that is Rising Sun.
Shameful display!
Rising Sun is still a really cool miniatures game. I really like it. I prefer it to Blood Rage. And, that whole sort of Japanesey style theme of all your clans beating each other up with big monsters. I can have this big dragon or this big troll and going at each other's faces with the cool little combat mechanic of betting on what abilities you want to key off. It's a really cool game. But like I say, it is starting to get difficult to get to the table because it's a huge seed. You got to get it there. You got to get the playmat out. Well, in my case, the playmat, but the big board, all the miniatures, set up your tiles, tell people how to play the game, and then obviously I don't want to play this with more than 3 players half the time because it just takes a bit too long with 4 or 5 players. With 4, also you have that problem of 2 people. Well, it's like 2v2 a lot of the time, but I don't mind it. 5, it's just too long of a game and you always get that one person by themselves, but then that's not necessarily a bad thing because the ability you get, was it the traitor card, I forget what it's called, backstabby action, is good when you're by yourself. So there are twos and froms there, but yeah, it's just not hitting the table as much as I would like, hence it has dropped to number 10, but I do still really enjoy this Rising Sun. My number 9 didn't actually make the list last year, it was just an honourable mention, and it has risen a little bit because I'm getting more into these kind of detective style games. I mean, we already have the wonderful detective behind my head, but it's also more of a case that this one it's just gotten a little bit better for me. More content has come out for it, the new expansions that have arrived have changed up the game a little bit. And I'm starting to get more used to the slight bugs that the app has when you're using it. I mean, there is still that frustrating element that you can't, when you use the app, you can't go back once you've accidentally said something, and that's a bit annoying. But Chronicles of Crime is still a solid detective-style game, which I do enjoy. As I said, 1 or 2 infuriating things with the UI and the app itself, but otherwise, it's a cool, condensed detective story. If you want something a bit lighter than, say, The Big Detective or City of Angels or something like that, you want something just a bit lighter, this is the way to go. The app of scanning in those QR codes works very well, other than, of course, like, you accidentally scan something you didn't want to, or you didn't know that you hadn't left the conversation with a character, and suddenly it's like, oh, I don't know anything about this. Well, yeah, I know you don't. I didn't mean to talk to you about this. Those niggles aside, the detective stories are still good. I still suck at it. I'm still not a very good detective. But it's a good fun game, and certainly one that's worth checking out from Lucky Duck Games. And that's Chronicles of Crime. Definitely also check out the Noir expansion if you haven't already. That one adds a couple of elements that I I wish we were in the base game. I think they changed things up quite nicely for that one. Haven't yet tried Red View, but that's on the list. My number 8 was number 6 last year. It's still going strong, you know, it's just dropped a little bit, but, you know, that's not a huge big deal, 2 places. It's still a solid Euro game, and one that I didn't even think I would like that much. You know, the designers, you know, Daniele Tassini and that, haven't done a ton of games that I'm a huge fan of. And, you know, I don't have Zolkin on my shelf. I like it, but it's not one I wanted to keep in my collection. But Teotihuacan was a really good, you know, Euro game with building the pyramid, collecting the special abilities around the map that was interchangeable between games. The expansion, which has a dumb name like pre-classic period or whatever, you know, at least added some really cool elements like player powers, which are hit and miss on balance, but you know, they're still really cool. But I like the orange temple that it brought in. I like the revised versions of the number 7, 8 and number 7 and 8 tiles. I think they're better than the original one. You know, there's just a few new elements that have changed things up a bit and allow for more strategies or weird paths to victory. But the game is cool. It's tense, it's tight, but not in a super punishing way. I feel like there's enough ways to get around problems without just being smacked in the face like some other heavy Euros will. But it's cool, looks great on the table, you know, with the Bake-like pyramid tile slowly building up. Lots of different ways to play and get points. Doesn't take too long. We're talking 2.5 hours or so with 4 players once you know what you're doing. You know, that's decent enough. If it takes any longer, you've got the AP player. But some of us have got it down to a point where it's like, yeah, you know what, we can actually churn through this relatively quickly. And it's got a pretty good solo mode as well. So Teotihuacan, whether I'm pronouncing that right or not, I don't know. But it's a solid game, definitely worth checking out if you fancy an interesting heavy Euro. My number 7 was my number 5 last year. Again, it's just dropped a couple of places, whoopie-doo. In fact, I'm actually due to play this at 3 o'clock this afternoon, actually, as I'm recording this. So hopefully my brain's not too fuzzled by doing these videos in time to do that, especially after editing them. But Cerebra is my number 7, and Cerebra is another excellent release in Mind Clash Games. Mind Clash Games has basically had a 100% success rate so far. Granted, they've only released 3 games, but still, it's a good start. You know, they did Anachrony, love it. They did Tricarion, how did I forget that? Tricarion, again, really good game. Anachrony is still my favourite of all 3, but Cerebra is still probably my second favourite of all 3. It is still a solid game where it's kind of like inside out the Euro game in a sense. You know, each of you, let's say mainly you would play it as a 4-player, but you would have like a team of 2 against another team of 2. One is playing like the happy emotions, one's playing the gloomy emotions, and you're vying for area control on this dream state board. It's quite busy and it's quite a lot to take in, but it is a heavy game after all. But you're essentially trying to control different areas by putting your different emotions into those areas, having more power, like more essence of those emotions than the other player, and you're vying for victory points via this central pillar that builds up by meeting objectives every round. But you don't know when the round's going to end because it depends on when this central pool of willpower gems ends up getting drained. So your opponent might trigger it before you're ready. And if you meet the criteria, then your piece goes in the central pillar. When it gets to the top, you tick the capping point on it, and then you see who's won based on how much of that pillar has been filled by other players and other means of victory points. It's heavy, but there's a lot of different paths to victory. I like the idea that it's team-based, so that you and your partner have to kind of think, right, well, we need to do this and this, but we don't want them to know exactly what we're doing, so how do we communicate this? Yeah, it's definitely heavy. The expansion added a third faction, the balance faction, which is good. I like playing them, but it's hard to beat them if you don't know what you're doing. You know, it's not one I recommend to throw in a game with new players, because in order to keep balance under control, the other two have to work together in order to get against them. And if they're new to the game, they won't know necessarily to do that. But it does allow you to play an interesting 3-player game where one person's the happy, one person's the sad, and one person's balanced. That I thought worked quite well. But yeah, I look forward to playing this again later. It looks the business. The Kickstarter version, even the retail version looks great, but the Kickstarter version with the pre-painted minis, oh, so nice. But yeah, I love this game. Mind Clash, you're just on 100% success rate. Can't wait to see what your 4th one is. Please continue this. You know, it's nice to see rich, thematic Euro games that are heavy. None of this 18xx and train malarkey. You know, come on, keep it up, guys. My number 6 was my number 7. This has actually gone slightly up for me, and I think more plays have just solidified that it's going to be a staple in my collection. And I'm not even a big Wild West fan, really. I don't watch Wild West movies. I'm not a huge fan of the theme, except for Firefly, I will give that. But that's space western. That's kind of different. And I suppose you could say to a lesser extent Star Wars, with like The Mandalorian and stuff recently. I mean, I don't mind it. I'm not like mad on The Mandalorian at the moment. It's kind of like I watched it. It's fine. I'll keep watching it. But the scum and villainy side is less interesting to me than the whole Jedi stuff. But, you know, that's sidetracking. You know, Western games, though, do allow for quite a lot of theme, and Western Legends is no exception from Colossal Games. This one is just a sandbox-style game where you can do whatever you like. Go gambling, go arrest people, go rob banks, go rustle cattle, go kill bandits, go, and now with the expansion I've shoved in it, Anti-Up, I can now go rob a train, I can do even more gambling, high-stakes poker. You know, there's all sorts I can do in this game, and I love sandbox games where I can literally go, right, rich thematic experience, what would I like to do this time? And it's just, I can tell my own story, do what I want. The game lets me play what I want to do, even if it's a dumb path, I get to pick it. You know, I'm going to kill every single bandit on this board.
But if your hand touches metal, I swear by my pretty floor bonnet, I will end you.
They keep spawning, so I'll never achieve this goal, but I'm going to keep doing it anyway. It's like, this is my choice. And even like, oh, there's 2 marshals in this game. I don't care. I'm going to rob the train. Try and catch me, guys. Woohoo! There's stuff like that. You get lots of laughter with this. I've got upgraded components for it. It's just, I love this one. This is a bit of a beast to get on the table and obviously play, but there's quite a few of us locally that are aware of this game or know how to play it and love it. There's some friends of mine I took it to the Devon holiday with. They played, I showed it to them and they just fell in love with it. So I know I'm going to get this one to the table relatively often if I decide I want to. And like I say, the new expansion now gives me all sorts of new ways to play. And I've got, in fact, I'm going to show you this. Oh my God. Whoa, Jesus Christ. This comes with the Anti-Up expansion. I haven't yet got it out of the shrink yet because I haven't yet played with it. But look at this thing. This thing is ridiculous. This is a playmat for the Anti-Up phase. So I bought this off the Kickstarter, and normally it comes in separate boards, but look at the size of this. Oh my God.
You're not sleeping with it, are you, Ray?
I'm going to need a big table for this. Well, it's a good thing I do have one, but yeah, at pubs and clubs, this is going to be a different story. But yeah, that is I do love playmats. You know, you want to get me to pimp up a game, first thing you do is make a playmat for it, and I will buy it. But yes, Western Legends, solid. You like Westerns, sandbox Euros, thematic games, this is one you have to try. My number 5 didn't make the list last time because I didn't play it last year. This is one of those examples where you just can't get everything played and you have to move on with the times and just get the new stuff played. But eventually more stock was released of this game and I finally got to play it, and my first reaction was, this is the kind of game that Terraforming Mars wished it could have been. You motherfucker! You know, there are differences between the two, but what I didn't get out of Terraforming Mars, I more got from this game, and that is underwater cities. The new expansion adds recess boards and more cards and a couple of extra little bits, you know, not tons, but those recess boards are so needed, God blimey. But annoyingly, I can't fit everything in the box, which is annoying. But, you know, I do like this card mechanic. I mean, yeah, it's dry as a bone. You know, yes, you're building an underwater city, but like Terraforming Mars, you don't really feel like you're terraforming Mars. You don't really feel like you're building an underwater city here. The card mechanic is just a mechanic, but it's a cool mechanic. The idea that you've got these cards with different actions on them and it's very tactical. You have to draw the cards, there's luck of the draw, but you have to react to what you've got in your hand. You can't strategize too much in this game. But if you play a card with the right color on certain slots, like green on green, red on red, you get to trigger the bonus on the card as well as the location action. And it's just trying to get all these cool abilities to combo off, trying to think, oh, I want to save that for the red. Do I play it on the green now because I really need the card ability, or do I wait? Draw more cards. Oh, I got a green one now. What can I do with that? You know, this stuff you keep doing as the game progresses, and it's not that long. Well, minus a couple of AP players and maybe 4-player game, it can get quite long, but a 3-player game of this, a 2-player game in this is fantastic. Even the solo game is pretty sweet as well. You know, these heavy Euro games are coming up with some much better solo modes these days. And for someone like me, who can't always get people around my house because of kids and families and stuff like that, you know, it's good to be able to play a decent solo mode. So, yep, hits the list at number 5. It was high in my top 100. I give this one all respect. It is on my shelf in the other room, Underwater Cities. My number 4 was my number 4 last time. It had not changed, and I kind of spoiled it earlier without realizing. Whoops, sorry, my bad. So, I talked about this when I was talking about Chronicles of Crime, and yeah, where are you? There you go. Detective, the Portal version, the heavy detective game. Although I've got City of Angels sitting over there, and I'm curious as to whether that's going to be heavier than Detective. It does look like a bit of a mammoth rules-wise, but I don't know, actually. Can someone put in the comments or let me know which one is harder to play than Detective and Detective City of Angels? I'm kind of interested. Bear in mind, I'm going to go through both solo. So, Detective from Portal is this great card mechanic where, the deck of cards is the case, you read through a card, and it's almost a bit like Choose Your Own Adventure in a sense. You read the blurb, you've got your briefing, and you've got the website that you can, like the tech guys from CSI to look up mug shots and history and stuff. It's really cool, put in your fingerprints. And through the cards, they give you leads. So it's like, you've gone to this place, you've been explained what's going on, this is the car crash scene, and then it was like, all right, what do you want to do? Do you want to take forensic data to the lab? Do you want to do you want to question the suspect? Do you want to go over to this person's house and have a look around? And it tells you to look at different cards. You don't have anywhere near enough time to look at everything, and you've got to, by the end of it, a bit like Chronicles of Crime, come up with a final report. And just like Chronicles of Crime, I suck at this game. But it's great fun to play. It's very thematic. It's definitely heavy on the story aspect. And certainly, you can tell it was written by the Polish in some respects. Also, there are some translation misses every now and again, but they're very, very minor. Very, very minor. In terms of the gameplay itself, though, it is solid. It will burn your brain, and it will really test your deduction skills. But the idea that you've got these cards with mug shots and you're doing almost like diagrams like they do in the shows, like putting drawing pins to various things, it's like that relates to that, but he was there. I know, but in history, 1966, he did this, and it just really gets you thinking. Definitely probably don't want to play with more than 4 players. Definitely not. I would say 2-player and solo is probably the best way to play this, and I have had friends who were put off this game because it was quite heavy. I mean, this is definitely... Unless City of Angels is heavier, this is the heaviest detective game I've played. But, you want a game that is dripping with theme, that's going to get more content. The 80s expansion, I've got 1 more to do on that. I've done 2 out of the 3. Oh my god, that is like so cool with theme. It feels like a nostalgic Beverly Hills Cop style 80s music. Every time I play one of the cases, I put on the soundtrack to 80s cop movies like Lethal Weapon and that, because it just fits. It fits. So thematic, I love it. Even though I suck at it, detective. My number 3 was my number 1 in the previous 2018 list, and like I say, 1 to 3, whatever. You've just heard me rave about Western Legends and Detective and that in such like glee. To be in my top 10 for a year means you've surpassed a lot of games, considering there's thousands that get released here. But, was my number 1, and I still think this is a brilliant mid-weight Euro that just throws a cool twist on the generic worker placement mechanic. And I say generic only because it's been done to death, not because I hate worker placement. I love worker placement. But Architects of the West Kingdom, over there, is just a fantastic midway Euro. It is easy to teach and play. It looks the business on the table. It's got the cool twist with the idea that you have all your workers, and when you put a worker on a space, it gets more powerful the more workers you shove on it, but people can come and arrest your workers and dump them in prison for money, and you've got to go get them out, and which means there's no rounds, and there's no cleanup phase or any of that junk, clankiness. It's just keep going and going and going until eventually the game ends. Brilliant, smooth, elegant design, and I love that in Euros these days. I'm fed up with all these clunky, fiddly Euros. I want to see elegance. I want to forget that I'm even playing a game sometimes because it's just so smooth. But with this one, you're just, it's a generic theme. I mean, you're just building buildings or a cathedral and you're trying to get victory points. But you've got the apprentices with cool abilities that you can chop and change every game. You've got your player powers. You've got the black market and the cathedral and that, and you've virtue track as to whether if you're too good in virtue, too high in virtue, you're not allowed in the black market, and vice versa, you're not allowed to help on the cathedral. And there's negative victory points for being bad, but you get tax discounts. There's all sorts of cool little twists like that. And I will say this is definitely still high because I've got a prototype expansion for Age of Artisans. Garphill Games lent me a copy of it. You can check out my review. I think it came out in September time. Go check it out. But it's a cool expansion. Doesn't add anything complicated. Just 1 or 2 minor mechanics. Well, minor. All right. a major mechanic and a minor mechanic, but both are really easy. They add more variety. They solve the minor issue with having too much money on your hands. Now you can actually spend that money on something useful, and it adds even more sort of paths to victory or cool combos that you can make for a relatively easy package. In fact, it is so easy to include, I will teach it with the expansion every single time. Of course, it's not getting released till 2020, so you'll have to wait, but for now, you can check out my review, and if you catch me at Dice Portsmouth or Southampton Bitsy or anything like that, then, or maybe even HandyCon, if it hasn't been released by then, you know, ask me and I'll bring it along. So that's Age of Artisans, that's Architects of the West Kingdom, get it right, my number 3. My number 2 was my number 2 last time. This has not changed. This is my go-to space game. There's other space games out there that are good, but when it comes to space, I don't care if it has to be 4X or not. I mean, this is kind of 3X really, you know, but this is my go-to. I want to play a space game. This is the first one I'll suggest, and that is Ryan Luckett's amazing Empires of the Void 2, the second edition. I was a fanboy of the first edition when it came out. I even got the print and play expansion for it to balance out a few things, and it made it even better. But this whole idea that I'm going out into space and I can choose whether I want to be like, you know, ruthless and conquer things or diplomatic and make friends with everyone. But I like the idea in this that you chop and change and it depends what you want to do. This alien race will give you some cool units to recruit and a special ability if you're friends with them. But you could just say, you know what, I'm just going to straight up conquer you. I'll get some points and a resource and there you go. I have control of your planet. Whereas if I'm diplomatic with you, I get the ability and the recruits and that, but I don't control your planet, but I do get some points anyway. So it's not like one is more powerful than the other. It's just, what do you want to do? What do you need? Which race do you want to ally with? It's great. But the power card system where you play the cards in order to dictate certain actions is great. Each one of them has its own action on it, like delivering cargo or doing an errand mission or just a straight up ability. I like the events that are shuffled into the main power deck. So when they draw out, planets end up with all sorts, like one becomes a casino, one ends up with a big sea monster that terrorizes things, one gets a self-destruct system, and you don't turn it off, it'll blow up, you know, all these cool things that can happen. In fact, I remember my friend of mine, last time we played, he was entrenched on a planet, I forget which one it was, a mountainous planet, and the event that came up basically did a Starship Troopers on him, where all these bug creatures rose up from underneath and chased him off the planet. It was great. But it's stuff like that that I love in these space games. And it also uses a mechanic, which I didn't realise I liked so much until recently, when other games recently are starting to use it. It's the one where, you know, normally someone takes a turn and you wait for someone else to take a turn and then you wait for someone else to take a turn and then it's yours. This one is someone takes an action and then everybody else gets to do that same action, or you can pay to do something different. And technically, I know if you do the math, that doesn't necessarily mean you get more turns. You're still waiting for someone to do their thing, but it just seems cool that you're banking on who's going to do an action when. I'm trying to think what other game recently I was talking about does it. I know there's one that I'm going to review soon, or play soon. That does the same thing. Was it? Oh yeah, Reavers of Midgard. They've got a similar thing. Someone does a main action and then the others get to do a lesser version of the action. I love that mechanic, and it's in Empires as well. So yeah, Twilight Imperium, too long for me. Eclipse, too boring. Balance your checkbook and space, don't care. Zyre, never played it. And I would like to, but only with 3 or max players. But like I say, when it comes to a lot of these other space games, Empires of the Void 2 is my favourite, hands down. And my number 1 for 2018, as I look back on that year, this is just, oh my god. I mean, it could drop a little bit in time, I don't know, but at the moment I seem to be just on a high with this game, and I don't know exactly why. It has a lot of variety. It's not particularly thematic, although I can inject theme into it based on the cards that come out. So even though the game is not inherently thematic, when you're just juggling cubes around to represent attributes, you know, it's still got the thing like, I got this companion, or I got this pet, or I went and got that relic, or I've got this personality trait, or I went and killed this monster. You inject your own theme into it. And Tom loves it. You know, I've had friends who weren't a fan of it. I've had friends who are fans of it. I just love Vindication. Vindication is just, again, another sandbox-style Euro. And granted, you have to inject a bit of that theme yourself, but looks great on the table. The cards are these cool little square die-cut ones, which are really nice. But I love the variety. I get to choose what I'm doing again. And it's like, maybe I am going to hoard a ton of relics and do cool powers. Maybe I am going to just end up with a bunch of passive abilities. Maybe I am going to go on a monster killing spree. Maybe I am going to level up my mount and ride Mothra into battle, like my friend was obsessed with. Maybe I am going to get an army of companions and pets to go with it, like a big, huge superhero posse. You know, there's so much I can do with this, and every game feels different. There's a couple of mini expansions for like chopping, changing locations. Some I really like, some I don't. You know, I like the whole big beastie that comes out that you kill out in the middle of the game. That's a cool expansion. Did not like the one where you're building a monument and stuff. I felt that just turned the game into like hyperdrive and went mad. I've yet to try the Leaders expansion to it though. It's still in my shelf. I still haven't tried it, but you know, I hear good things about that one as well. But I've got all the ways that I can think of to play it. It's not a difficult game to teach either. I felt that it was kind of mid-weight Euro in a sense. It's definitely not light, but I wouldn't call it heavy either. There's a bit you got to juggle around with the cubes, but you pick it up reasonably quickly. And the turn sequence is relatively straightforward, but something about this game just works with me. Look, I think a lot of it is down to variety and the fact that I can inject theme into this. Yes, okay, it's not bursting from the seams at me, but I can fit it in and it's a much more interesting theme than let's build a train in colonial eras, or that doesn't make sense. But you know what I mean, you know, these boring historical themes. It's like, no, give me a weird fantasy theme and, you know, or sci-fi fantasy theme and let me have cool magic and cool abilities and a pet. I want a pink dinosaur. There's a pink velociraptor. I want it as my pet. You know, stuff like that. It just sings to me. Love this game. It is on my shelf and it is going to stay there for a long time. Never got a chance to play it at first because I wasn't in on the first Kickstarter. Then when they did the expansion, I got in on that Kickstarter and yes. So glad that I did. It's a shame I never got to play it earlier, but at least it's getting recognition now, being my #1 game of 2018 on the look back. So that's it for there. You know, 10 games and how many new entries? I think there was only a couple of new entries now that I think of it. So yeah, not many. You know, most of them are ones that I've played before and they've either just resurged a bit or dropped and risen a little bit, and there's a couple of new entries. So 2018 I thought was reasonably solid by the time we got to the end of Essen. It started off badly and then got better. 2019 in comparison really isn't that great a year so far. I have to admit, for games I feel like we're lacking on lots of solid hits. Yeah, there's some, but not as many as I would like. But it'll be interesting to see next year when I've played more 2019 games whether that list would change as well. But of course, you have my actual top 10 of 2019 to look forward to. But I got a lot of games to play before then. So that's it for me. I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of the Dice Tower Marathon if you're watching. If not, you're watching this on my channel, in which case, thank you for watching and please ding the don and subscribe if you like the content. So, without further ado, I'm going to sign off. Take care, I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple video. And remember, regardless of what year it is, it's still only a game. Take care and happy gaming.